Senior Evaluator Thyrix floated in her observation chamber, high above the small blue planet. Her crystalline body sparkled as she reviewed the data streaming from the world below. This was routine work, another primitive species to catalog and rate for future contact. Vorthak, bring me the species summary, she called to her assistant. The younger alien hurried over with a glowing data pad. Yes, Senior Evaluator. The species calls themselves humans. They live on the third planet, from their star. Thyrix studied the information. These humans were exactly what she expected to find. They had basic technology, simple rockets that barely reached their own moon, and weapons that used chemical explosions. Nothing impressive at all. Down on Earth, Dr. Hyun-woo sat in his small office at the Seoul National University. He was studying strange readings from deep space telescopes. Something big had appeared at the edge of their solar system 3 days ago, but it vanished before anyone could get a clear look. Minho, come see this, he called to his colleague across the hall. Dr. Minho hurried over, coffee in hand. What, is it now, Hyun-woo? Another asteroid? No, look at these energy patterns. This is not natural. Something was watching us. Minho laughed. You watch too many science fiction movies. It was probably just a solar flare, but Hyun-woo was not convinced. He had been tracking unusual signals for weeks. Each time the patterns were too organized, too purposeful to be random space phenomena. Back in orbit, Thyrix continued her evaluation. She watched humans fight small wars over resources and territory. She saw them pollute their own planet while struggling to feed their growing population. They had barely begun to explore their own solar system. Typical pre-contact species, she muttered to herself. Aggressive, short-sighted, and technologically primitive. Vorthak nodded in agreement. Should we classify them as hostile, Senior Evaluator? No need, Thyrix replied. They cannot even leave their own star system. Rate them as minimal threat. Level. What Thyrix did not know was that down in a laboratory in Busan, Dr. Ji-eun was working on something remarkable. She had been analyzing the strange energy signatures that Hyun-woo had detected. Using quantum mathematics that most of the galaxy had not yet discovered, she was beginning to understand how the mysterious visitors had traveled faster than light. This is impossible, Ji-eun whispered to herself as she stared at her calculations. But the math works. If we could generate this kind of field distortion. She worked through the night, filling page after page with equations. By morning, she had theoretical blueprints for a faster-than-light engine that would make the aliens' technology look like an old bicycle. Meanwhile, in a military base near Seoul, Colonel Dong Hyun was reviewing satellite data with his team. They had detected the same anomalies that the scientists were studying, but from a defense perspective. Whatever was out there, it was big, he told his officers, and it was scanning us. We need to be ready for anything. His aide, Captain Soo-jin, raised her hand. Sir, what if they were not hostile? What if they were just studying us? Dong-hyun considered this. Then we still need to be prepared. If someone can travel between stars, they have technology we cannot imagine. We need to catch up fast. Unknown to the military, Ji-eun had just solved that exact problem. Her calculations showed how to build engines that could cross the galaxy in days instead of millennia. All they needed were the right materials and energy sources. Up in her ship, Thyrix completed her final assessment. She rated humanity at 2.3 out of 10 on the Galactic difficulty scale. This meant they were harmless enough for eventual contact, but not important enough to worry about. They show standard patterns of primitive aggression, she dictated to her recording device. Limited to their home planet with basic space technology. Estimated time to achieve interstellar travel, 500 to 1,000 years. Difficulty rating, 2.3. Recommend standard first contact protocols and 6 standard galactic cycles. She paused and looked down at the blue planet one more time. The humans seemed so ordinary, so predictable. They fought among themselves, struggled with simple problems, and had barely learned to use nuclear energy. Schedule this system for routine monitoring, she told Vorthak. Contact team can handle first approach when the time comes. Nothing special here. As Thyrix's massive survey ship prepared to leave the solar system, She had no idea that her scan had been detected by 3 different human facilities. She did not know that Ji-un was already building prototype engines based on her own ship's energy signatures. She certainly did not know that humans had a habit of treating impossible problems as interesting puzzles to solve. The alien ship vanished into hyperspace, leaving Earth behind as just another entry in a vast catalog of primitive worlds. Thyrix moved on to survey the next system, confident that she had plenty of time before these humans became anything worth noticing. But down on Earth, Hyun-woo was calling an emergency meeting of every physicist, engineer, and military officer he could contact. The age of human isolation was about to end, whether the galaxy was ready or not. The greatest miscalculation in galactic history had just been filed and forgotten in the Confederation's vast archives. 6 months later, Captain Morveth's diplomatic vessel approached Earth with the standard first contact package. The silver ship, impressive enough to awe any primitive species, descended through Earth's atmosphere toward the designated landing zone in neutral international waters. Dong-hyun Choi stood at the head of Earth's hastily assembled first contact team, which included Hyun-woo, Ji-un, and Min-ho. Behind them, Soo-jin Park, a linguist, held her universal translation device, a piece of human engineering that had already surprised the approaching aliens. "Greetings, humans of Earth," Captain Morveth announced as he emerged from his vessel. "I am Captain Morveth of the Galactic Confederation. We come to welcome your species into the greater galactic community." Soo-jin stepped forward. "Welcome to Earth, Captain Morveth. We've been expecting you since we detected your survey ship 6 months ago." Morveth's confidence faltered. "You detected us? That should not have been possible with your technology level." Ji-un smiled. "We've made some improvements since then. In fact, we have some questions about your propulsion system. The quantum resonance patterns suggest you're using a folded space-time matrix, but your energy efficiency is only about 34%. We think we can help you improve that." The captain's translator struggled with the technical terms. This was not how first contact was supposed to proceed. Hyun-woo produced a small device. "We've also been wondering about galactic politics. Your confederation, is it truly representative of all species, or are there hierarchical structures that limit certain species' participation?" Morveth looked at his aide, Sub-Commander Kelvix, with growing alarm. These humans were asking questions that most species took centuries to formulate. Min-ho held up a tablet showing complex mathematical equations. "And we're curious about these energy signatures we've been detecting from the galactic core. The patterns suggest artificial control. Is someone regulating space-time itself?" Captain Morveth realized he needed to contact the Confederation immediately. This species was definitely not rating 2.3. 3 months had passed since first contact, and the galaxy was already feeling strange. At the massive Nexus Point trading station, something impossible was happening. For the first time in 10,000 years, prices were actually going down. Jae-min walked through the crowded marketplace with a big smile on his face. The young Korean businessman had arrived just 2 weeks ago, but he was already causing chaos in the best possible way. In his hands, he carried a simple tablet showing something the galaxy had never seen before: a price comparison chart. "Look here," he said to a group of confused alien traders. "On my homeworld, when people compete to sell the same thing, they try to offer better deals to attract customers. Everyone wins because buyers get better prices and sellers who work harder get more business." The aliens stared at him like he was speaking in riddles. Merchant Prince Zelen, a wealthy trader who had controlled spice prices for centuries, shook his massive head in confusion. "But young human, the tradesman's guild has always set fair prices for everyone. Why would we compete against each other?" Jae-min grinned. "Because competition makes everyone try harder. Watch this." He walked over to 2 spice vendors and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I need to buy spice for my ship. Who can give me the best deal?" The first vendor, a nervous Altarian, looked around frantically. The guild price is 50 credits per unit. That is what everyone charges." But the second vendor, a clever Boltonian, had been listening to human ideas for days. "I will sell for 45 credits per unit, and I will throw in free shipping containers." The crowd gasped. This had never happened before. The first vendor quickly shouted, "Then I will sell for 40 credits with premium-grade spice." Within minutes, both vendors were offering deals that would have been unthinkable just weeks earlier. Jamin bought his spice for 35 credits per unit, the lowest price in recorded galactic history. Meanwhile, across the station, something even more shocking was happening. Yunji sat at a table surrounded by representatives from 12 different species. The economics professor was explaining concepts that were making their heads spin. "You see," she said patiently, "when everyone participates freely in trade, wealth grows for everyone. It is not like a pie where one person's slice makes everyone else's slice smaller. It is like planting seeds. The more you plant, the more everyone can harvest." A Catherian trader raised his tentacle nervously. "But Professor Yunji, my species has always been told we are only good for simple labor. The hierarchy says we cannot understand complex business." Yunji frowned. "Who told you that? Have you ever tried learning business skills?" "Well, no. It is forbidden for our kind." "Says who?" Yunji asked. "Did you choose to accept that rule, or was it just forced on you?" The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Around the table, representatives from so-called lesser species began looking at each other with new understanding. At the same time, on the research levels of the station, Wu Jin was causing his own kind of revolution. The young physicist had just walked into the Galactic Research Institute and solved a problem that had stumped the galaxy's best minds for over 1,000 years. Dr. Ithara, the three-eyed chief researcher, stared at Wu Jin's solution in amazement. "How did you solve the quantum resonance problem so quickly? Our best teams have worked on this for centuries." Wu Jin shrugged. "I ignored all your previous research and started fresh. Sometimes old assumptions get in the way of new solutions." "You ignored our research?" Dr. Ithara's voice squeaked. "But that research represents millennia of accumulated galactic knowledge." "Yeah, but what if some of that knowledge was wrong?" Wu Jin replied casually. "On Earth we have a saying, question everything. Just because something has always been done one way does not mean it is the best way." The concept was so alien to galactic thinking that Dr. Ithara had to sit down. In his culture, questioning established knowledge was almost unthinkable. Down in the station's service levels, So Young was having an even more dangerous conversation. She sat with a group of Catherian workers who had always accepted their role as servants to the higher species. "But we have always been servants," protested one worker. "It is our place in the natural order." So Young shook her head. "There is nothing natural about it. Where I come from, we believe every person has the right to choose their own path in life." Choose. The concept was foreign to them. Yes, choose. You could be traders, scientists, artists, anything you want. Your species is not your destiny. Word of this conversation spread through the servant networks faster than anyone expected. Within days, Catherians across the galaxy were asking their masters uncomfortable questions. Why do we have to be servants? What if we want to try other jobs? The questions reached other servant species too. Soon the established order was facing something it had never dealt with before. Workers who refused to accept their assigned roles simply because they had always been assigned those roles. Back at Confederation headquarters, Senior Evaluator Thyrix stared at reports flooding in from across the galaxy. Trade disruptions, research breakthroughs, and social unrest were spreading everywhere humans went. What was most disturbing was that humans were not conquering anyone. They were teaching other species to think for themselves. "Sir," Forthak approached with another stack of reports. "The Council of Hierarchs has called an emergency meeting. They are very concerned about what they call the human infection." Thyrix felt her crystalline form flicker with worry. The humans had been in galactic society for only 3 months, but they were already changing everything. And the worst part was they were doing it simply by asking questions that no one had ever thought to ask before. The ancient chamber at the galaxy's core had not seen such panic in 50,000 years. Overlord Supremus Vex towered over the circular table where the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in emergency session. His massive form cast shadows that seemed to move with his anger. These humans are a disease, Vex declared, his voice echoing through the crystal walls. In 6 months they have undone millennia of careful order. Intelligence Director Malthan activated a holographic display showing chaos spreading across dozens of star systems. The situation is worse than we thought, Overlord. 43 species have joined what they call the Coalition of Free Worlds. Free worlds, Vex spat. There is no freedom without order. Freedom is chaos. The display showed disturbing images from across the galaxy. Cytherian servants refusing to work until they received wages. Altarian traders ignoring guild prices. Even some Etherian nobles questioning why they ruled over other species. How many ships do we have ready? Vex asked his military commander. War Marshal Kronthex straightened his armored form. 12,000 vessels in the first annihilation. Fleet Overlord. I have never lost a battle. Good. Destroy this coalition before their ideas spread further. Meanwhile, hidden in the asteroid fields of the Kepler sector, the largest gathering of different species in galactic history was taking place. Insu stood before representatives from dozens of worlds, his calm voice carrying across the massive chamber they had carved from a hollowed asteroid. Intelligence reports confirm it, he announced. The hegemony's main fleet is moving toward our position. They plan to make an example of us. A nervous Boltonian representative raised his arm. Commander Insu, their fleet is enormous. How can we possibly fight them? Insu smiled. We are not going to fight them the way they expect. Yijin, show them the plan. Yijin activated the holographic projector, revealing a battle strategy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of the traditional massive ship formations, it showed thousands of small, fast vessels working together like a swarm of insects. The hegemony always wins because they use overwhelming force against enemies who fight the same way they do, Yijin explained. But what if we refuse to play by their rules? Chan Wu stepped forward, his engineer's mind excited by the challenge. Each species brings their unique abilities. The Etherians give us stealth technology. The Boltonians provide shield generators. The Cytherians manufacture precision weapons. And humans coordinate everything. He pointed to different sections of the display. Look, we do not try to match their firepower. Instead, we use speed, surprise, and teamwork. 1,000 small ships working together can defeat one large ship that fights alone. Hey One, the xenobiologist added her own insight. We have been teaching other species human military thinking. Concepts like adapting to changing situations and making quick decisions without waiting for orders from headquarters. The alien representatives looked skeptical. For generations, they had been taught that only large organized forces could win battles. This human approach seemed impossible. But Commander, protested an Altarian captain, our ships are much smaller than theirs. Their weapons are more powerful. Insu nodded. That is exactly why this will work. They expect us to line up our big ships against their big ships. When we attack with small ships from all directions at once, their commanders will not know how to respond. Suddenly, alarms began screaming throughout the base. The hegemony fleet had arrived ahead of schedule. On the main display, 12,000 massive warships appeared like dark clouds blotting out the stars. War Marshal Kronthex's voice boomed across all communication channels. Rebellious species of the so-called coalition, you have 1 hour to surrender. Return to your assigned roles and we will show mercy. Continue this rebellion and face complete destruction. In the Coalition Command Center, Insu looked around at his diverse team. Humans worked alongside Cytherians, Boltonians, Etherians, and dozens of other species. For the first time in galactic history, they were not fighting as separate races but as equals with a common cause. All ships, this is Coalition Command, Insu announced calmly. Remember your training. Trust your teammates. Show them what cooperation can accomplish. The response was immediate. Thousands of small coalition ships launched from hidden positions throughout the asteroid field. They moved in perfect coordination, each group knowing exactly what the others were doing without needing constant communication. Kronthex watched in confusion as his sensors showed enemy ships appearing everywhere at once. What is this? Where is their main battle line? Sir, His tactical officer reported nervously. They do not have a main battle line. They are attacking from all directions with small groups. Impossible, Kronthex growled. No one fights this way. Order all ships to target the largest enemy vessels. Sir, there are no large enemy vessels. They are all small ships working together. For the first time in his long military career, War Marshal Kronthex faced an enemy that refused to follow the rules of warfare he understood. The coalition ships darted between his massive vessels like schools of fish, striking with precision and vanishing before his gunners could target them. This is not how battles are fought, he muttered in disbelief. From his small command ship, Insu watched the confusion spreading through the hegemony fleet. That is exactly the point, Marshal. When everyone does the same thing, someone who does something different has a huge advantage. The battle for the future of galactic civilization had begun, and already the outcome was becoming clear in ways no one had expected. The Battle of Kepler Sector ended in 4 hours and 17 minutes. War Marshal Kronthex sat in his command chair, staring at the impossible scene on his screens. His mighty fleet floated helplessly in space, every ship disabled but none destroyed. Around him, his officers looked just as confused as he felt. Insu's voice came through the communication system, calm and respectful. Marshal Kronthex, this is Coalition Command. Your ships are disabled, not destroyed. We are sending medical teams to help your wounded crew members. All your people will be allowed to return home safely. Kronthex could not understand what had happened. His 12,000 ships had been defeated by an enemy that fought like nothing he had ever seen. The coalition forces had swarmed around his massive vessels like angry bees, targeting engines and weapons with surgical precision while carefully avoiding crew areas. How, was all he could manage to say. Cooperation, Marshal, Insu replied. When 43 different species work together as equals, sharing their knowledge and strengths, impossible things become possible. Yejin's voice joined the conversation from the coalition flagship. We do not want to conquer you, Marshal. We want to free you from a system that wastes the potential of entire species. 3 weeks later, the galaxy was changing in ways no one had imagined. The hegemony of established order had collapsed almost overnight, when their invincible fleet returned home defeated, but treated with kindness by their enemies. Across the galaxy, species that had been oppressed for millennia were demanding representation and rights. Senior evaluator Thyrix floated in her chamber, struggling to write the most difficult report of her career. Outside her window, she could see the new Confederation Council building, where representatives from over 200 species were meeting as equals for the first time in galactic history. Young Su had just finished explaining human governmental ideas to the council. The meeting had lasted 18 hours with alien representatives asking endless questions about concepts they had never heard before. What do you mean by individual rights? A Catherian delegate had asked. It means every person, regardless of their species, has the right to choose their own path in life. Young Su had explained patiently. No one can force you to be a servant just because your parents were servants. But who decides what is best for society? An Etherian noble had wondered. The people decide together, through voting and discussion. We call it democracy. And what stops the government from becoming too powerful? We write down rules that even the government must follow. We call it a constitution. These ideas were so foreign to galactic thinking that many delegates needed the concepts explained multiple times. But slowly, understanding began to spread. Now Thyrix had to write a report explaining how she had gotten everything so wrong. She activated her recording device and began what would become the most important document in galactic history. Species. Reassessment. Humans of Sol 3. Previous classification 2.3 out of 10. New classification. Error. Scale insufficient. She paused, trying to find the right words. How do you explain that an entire civilization had been built on wrong assumptions? The human species does not fit our standard measurements. We thought power came from controlling others, but humans have shown that real power comes from helping others become stronger. We believed that order required hierarchy, but humans have proven that cooperation works better than domination. Through her window, she could see Hyunwoo working with a team of Etherian scientists. They were solving problems together that neither species could have handled alone. Nearby, Minho was teaching Catherian engineers advanced mathematics, while they showed him manufacturing techniques that humans had never imagined. Most importantly, Therix continued her report, humans do not just become powerful themselves. They make everyone around them more powerful too. They teach other species to question limitations that were never real in the first place. She thought about all the changes she had witnessed. Jiyeon had shared her faster-than-light engine designs freely with any species that wanted them. Jaemin had helped dozens of worlds establish fair trade systems. So-young had started schools where any species could learn any subject they wanted. The humans revealed that our entire difficulty rating system was based on a false assumption. We believed that some species were naturally superior to others, and that galactic stability required keeping everyone in their assigned place. The humans have shown us that this was not stability. It was stagnation. Around the galaxy, the changes continued. Former servant species were becoming traders, scientists, and even political leaders. Ancient trade monopolies were crumbling as free markets spread. Scientific discoveries that had taken centuries were now happening in months as different species shared knowledge freely. Personal observation, Therix added to her report. The humans did not conquer us. They did not destroy our civilization. Instead, they showed us how to build a better one. They proved that questioning old ways is not dangerous. Accepting them without thought is what is truly dangerous. She sealed the report and sent it to the new galactic archives, where it would be studied by every species in the galaxy. The age of imposed order was ending. The age of chosen cooperation had begun. On Earth, Hyunwoo looked up at the stars through his telescope and smiled. 6 months ago, humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they were part of something bigger and better than anyone had imagined possible. The galaxy had not just gained a new species. It had learned to become something greater than the sum of its parts. And it had all started with humans who refused to accept that things had to stay the way they had always been.